In the final project, I designed soundtracks for the works of each week because I want to see how the soundtrack can work with the image and the other medias. Also, I want to improve the sense of motivations by adding soundtrack to the works. In week 1, I have taken a series of images related to the people in the cities. I create some soundtracks to simulate what they are doing. As the theme of this project is called observations. By designing the soundtrack, it brings a sense of realistic and motivation to each image. Regarding the theme of thinker as method, are you aspiring to design the animation? I have found an asset and designed a running animation in the first place. I wonder what happened if I randomly arrange a frame. I create an explosion animations and then play with the frame. It produces a weird effect. Then I plan to add soundtrack. I'm inspired by the TV glitching. I want to use the effect present the animation because the animation present a weird glitching effect. I add running and glitching soundtrack and mix up together. I create a guy playing VR on week 3. It highlights a person who is keen to escape from the real world and the virtual to the virtual. It highlights a person who is keen to escape from the real world to the virtual world. In other words, the person wants to stay in the fake peaceful world. I use a calm soundtrack to highlight the scenes. The strong beat and the calm music brings a connection between the peaceful world and the electric facility. I create 3 soundtracks for each scene. The 3 soundtracks produce different experience. The first soundtrack highlights a smooth music flow as the artwork presents a watercolor texture. The second soundtrack displays an 8-bit music effect because the idea of the image is related to Minecraft. It shows a strong connection between the soundtrack and the images. The third soundtrack brings a sense of intention. The tune of the music is decreasing as the image of the artwork accentuates a strong contrast between the atmosphere and the light in the middle. As week 5 project display a relationship between pencils and erasers, I create a hit soundtrack to produce the sound effect when the pencil hit the erasers. In addition, I add some ouch voices to pretend that the eraser get injury from the pencils. It highlights a terrible relationship between the pencils and erasers. In response to the theme of character and environment, I designed a semi-bot machine inspired by the movie of Predator. Originally, I want to design a robot living in the forest. However, I wonder how the robot will look like if the robot has lived for a while. I combine the plant and machine elements because the robot need to use the element around it to gain the energy if the robot wants to survive for longer. The robot has to develop itself by using nature elements such as trees, plants, water, and other things. As the character is born in the forest, I designed some forest soundtracks including the wind blowing the leaves and the creature voices. Also, there is a machine's alarm voices to highlight the machine is coming. At the end, all the sounds are ended by a weird creature soundtrack, which is the machine's soundtrack. I didn't use the real machine sounds is because I have distorted sounds from a creature to a robot. In response to the theme of time and material, I explore the effect of explosion in After Effects. By testing the time traveling between forward and backward, the scenes brings a feeling of beginning and ending of a space. I use reverse effect to reverse the soundtrack of the explosions. Furthermore, in order to highlight the vibrations, I add a few vibration soundtrack to connect with the beginning sounds and the ending sounds. Also, the reverse soundtrack can bring a sense of connections with the times. In response to this week, the theme of force, I create 3 models for my project. These are the following rules that I've set for myself. Only use 3D artworks, highlight 3 feelings, including cartoon, reality, and painting. Only use 1 model. I'm inspired by Super Mario mushrooms, Viking patterns and ceramic, and the thick oil paint. The first image is inspired by Super Mario. I designed an 8-bit soundtrack to show a link with the pixel art game. The middle image brings a feeling of cracking ceramic and also shows a feeling of weight. I used the ceramic voice to improve the sense of realistic. The last image displayed a painting texture. I create a thick liquid soundtrack and brush soundtrack to present an artist's painting on the jellyfish sculpture. In conclusion, I have learned how to use the soundtrack to design the artworks, as the soundtrack improves the feeling of the motivations and shows a link to the artworks. In observations, designing the soundtrack for the image that I observe highlight the actions of what they are doing and enhance sense of realistic. Next, playing with the animation frame and creating another effect which I don't expected is another study of animations. By playing with the material in week 3, I understand that each material presents different feeling and they produce a various feeling once they connect to each other. In addition, I am interested in the color pattern that I use to represent the VR headset, as it shows a strong contrast with the person figure. By playing with the filter and the soundtrack, in week 4, I realized the texture are one of the elements that can change the feeling of the image, and soundtrack is another element to improve the feelings. In week 5, presenting an artwork can be a simulation rather than an animation, as Unity has physical systems which can simulate gravity, velocity, and colliders. It shows a strong realistic. Then, I have learned how to use plenty of image to create a characters. I understand how to use distortion to highlight the combinations of machines and creature sounds. In addition, I understand the relationship between times and object by designing the explosions in After Effects. As time creates object, an object will be vanished by time going. Furthermore, I understand how to use a few limitations to create 3 different textures because I can use color, repeat, pattern, contrast, and positive and negative space to design an artwork.